Whether you're a lifelong fan of the series or simply a casual viewer, you're probably well aware of the black sheep of the Dragon Ball family, Dragon Ball GT. A lot of fans hate this show, and it's pretty easy to see why. It isn't really considered canon as Akira Toriyama didn't actually write the story. He did contribute to the character designs and a couple other things, but that's really besides the point. Another common gripe about this series is that it makes extreme jump in its own logic with its own power scaling. If you haven't seen any of the videos that were posted by Dragon Ball Nation about the difference between Dragon Ball GT and Dragon Ball Super, then head over to his channel because he deals with this stuff in far greater detail and it's really interesting. You should check it out. But the whole concept of power scaling is not something I'm really going to focus on today. Power scaling has never really been the biggest drawing factor for me in Dragon Ball, so it's not something I'm ever really going to focus on. Who would win in a fight doesn't really matter to me. Today, I'm going to be discussing a few reasons why I actually really enjoy GT. But in doing so, I'm going to have to acknowledge just a few things that just didn't work, and so we're just going to have to get those out of the way. But okay, let's just get started. Here they are in no particular order. First off, even though GT is considered fan fiction by a majority of the Dragon Ball fans, it's clear to see that the writers of the series had a deep passion and understanding of what made the franchise so immensely popular in the first place. Turning Goku into a kid and having him travel across the universe to collect the Black Star Dragon Balls is a great throwback to the original Dragon Ball series. And by exploiting seemingly random tidbits from the Dragon Ball Z anime, like King Kai's description of the Tuffles, also the video game tie-in Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans, or Elder Kai's warning of the overuse of the Dragon Balls, those things brought on villains like Baby or Omega Shenron, two of the greatest villains that we've ever seen throughout the entire series of Dragon Ball. Next up, and I know I might get a little slack for this, but I actually think the character development in GT makes a whole lot of sense, and excluding everyone besides Oob, the extreme focus on Goku and to a certain extent Vegeta isn't so surprising. Since the beginning of the Dragon Ball series, no other character has trained or fought for the mere pleasure of fighting besides those two. Gohan might have been a badass on the battlefield, but he's always been opposed to fighting. With the extended period of peace that takes place in between the Buu arc and the beginning of GT, it's almost ludicrous to believe that Gohan would have kept up with training and been able to compete with everyone in that series. If you think about it, GT actually is kinder to Gohan than actually Fukkatsu no F, but that's a video for another day. Since we only meet Goten, Kid Trunks, and Pan at the very end of Dragon Ball Z, it's really not up to us to decide how the time skip treats them. However, I understand where the series was headed in their depiction of these three. I think of it as a kind of hero worship for these three young characters, as Goten and Trunks have a fascination with Gohan and Vegeta respectively, and Pan with their grandfathers. Personally, I don't understand why everyone's so upset with Piccolo's part in Dragon Ball GT. I think it's pretty poetic for him to go out saving Goku, the man he was actually born to kill. Then he gets sent to an eternity of kicking Frieza and Cell's ass in hell. That seems like a really badass conclusion to his character, but that's just my opinion. Moving on to Vegeta, ever since the ending of Z, he seemed to have moved on from his former life and learned to love and appreciate his family. So his more fatherly role in GT is kind of to be expected. Also, when he decides to be more powerful, nearly killing himself to be just on par with Goku is totally within Vegeta's character. That isn't a bastardization of Vegeta, that is Vegeta. The only character that's overlooked that actually really enrages me is that Oob never really amounted to anything in the series. He spent all those years training with Goku, he should have been more involved. Okay, so probably the last point here, because I don't want to make this video way too long, but the ending of GT is no doubt the perfect send-off to the series as a whole. And I'm not just talking about the last scene or the last episode either, I'm talking about the entire Shadow Dragon arc. Perhaps the story could have been handled better with the other characters helping out Goku and Pan fight the Shadow Dragons, but that's really besides the point. I'm a firm believer in the saying that there is no such thing as a selfless act, and I really appreciate how this arc treats the actions of the characters throughout the series. So those wishes might have been good, but they're still very selfish acts, and that's what caused the negative energy to build up and produce the Shadow Dragons eventually. Now, in order to follow the story that GT actually puts down for the Shadow Dragons, we have to accept a few things, like the corruption within the balls was caused between 3 different dragons and 2 different guardians. But I guess they were technically the same orbs if I'm not mistaken, so I'm really willing to overlook that point. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up this video before I take up too much of your valuable time. What are some of the reasons that you like Dragon Ball GT? Do you hate Dragon Ball GT? Tell me why in the comment section below. Don't forget to rate and subscribe, and as always, have a nice day everybody.